Hey, everybody. Welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I'm so blessed and honored to be here with Merrilee Bratt. And thanks to all of you for hanging in there. We had a little technical difficulty, so we started just a few minutes late. So hopefully you are still with me. And if you are, please hit that like button. Send a little love out here to Merrilee and myself. I'll take it. Merrilee, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Beautiful sunny day here in Minnesota.
Oh, sunny in Minnesota. What does sunny feel like in Minnesota in February?
Well, today it's 35, so and tomorrow it's supposed to be 41. So we're looking forward to that weather after some real below zero days.
That's
So
balmy, downright balmy there in February.
I
We
know
got
we can almost go out in our swimsuits and suntan.
there's an image for you. All right, everybody. Minnesotans right now in February out there in their swimsuits and at 41 degrees. Let me know where in the world you are. If you're watching this right now, do me a favor, get in the comments, check in with us. We're going to be talking about all sorts of things today, and I'm going to want your opinions. One of my favorite things about Merrilee is that she always has been so supportive of the show, and she's always been super active in the comments, always providing not just me too, but here's why I think this way, or here's what we need to be considering. And I loved her comments. So in honor of Merrilee today, I want y'all to all get in the comments and give me something to chew on. Let's give Merrilee some great questions and some great comments today. We're going to be talking about well-being, the future of millennials and assignments, the future of repayback agreements and collections around those. Is technology for real in our space? What are the gaps that it's solving for, and where is it maybe just a little extra sizzle and not much steak? Want to talk about that. I want to talk about corporate security programs and talk about her experience, right? She's got a really cool kind of expat story and how that informed her global mobility career. So we've got a lot of stuff in store for you today. Merrilee, what do you say we check in with some of our folks here in the comments?
Definitely, I'll rely on you. So I don't
All
want to open
right.
the phone and.
Let's open the phone lines. The phone lines are open. Hello, caller. Let's see here. Theodora, look at hello from Arizona.
Oh, nice. I wish I was there.
Right? Seriously. Scott Chapman checking in from Dallas, Texas. Scott's going to be on the show this
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah, I have a Texas connection. I grew up in Houston, and my nephew's down at Baylor and Waco, and my best friend is in the Dallas area. So
nice. Shout out to all the Baylor Bears out there and our Houstonian friends here. We have a slight rivalry with our Houstonian counterparts here in Dallas. You know that, right, Merrilee?
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. Mostly around baseball and barbecue, but
yeah,
we'll sort it out.
I miss the barbecue, that's for sure.
Girl, I went to not Sunny Black's, Terry Black's last night in downtown Dallas in Deep Ellum. Oh my goodness gracious. Merrilee, so good.
I'll put that on my list because I hope to be down there in the spring. So
well, if you come down, you need to look me up and we will go to lunch and we will do it up. Look at this. Look at my dad's checking in here.
Oh, hey, Dad.
Hey, Dad. Love you, man. Rob Morehouse. Good day, Ben and Merrilee. Good day to you, Rob.
Good day, Rob.
Love my Aussies as well in the house here. This is great. We got Mary Ellen checking in. Mike Falia checking in from SoCal.
Mary Ellen's a good friend. So, hey, Matt.
Look at that. Isn't it fun? We got friends all over the place here. People are hanging in there for us. Hit that like button right now. I want to know what questions you have for Merrilee. Again, we're going to be talking about millennials and assignments, repayback agreements. We're going to be talking about her experience as an expat. So I want to know what questions you have. London Town's in the house with Richard here. Christina is in Mexico. Mena is I think it's in Dubai. Yes, thank you for hanging in there, Mena. So cool. Very cool. Look, y'all are the best. Look at this. Yes, we are live here. This is great. And look, Ursula's checking in from Melbourne, Australia at 8 a.m.
Wow.
Look at this. This is great. We got Slavin checking in. Looking forward to the show. Baylor shout outs here. We're going to get into this.
Yeah.
Big game on Sunday. People are getting ready for the Super Bowl. Any Super Bowl predictions out there? Merrilee, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
The Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs are playing the Philadelphia Eagles in the big game. I don't even think we're allowed to say the name of the game. I think it's trademarked here, and I'd like to think we're such a big show these days that somebody cares. Any predictions out there? Who do y'all think is going to win? The Eagles are a 1.5 favorite, or so I've heard. Merrilee, do you care to venture a guess out there on who might win the Super Bowl?
Well, I of course, being in the Midwest, I have to go with Kansas. I like the Eagles, though.
Oh, this is great. I cut out here. Adam, am I still live here? Merrilee, right when you told us who you were going to go with, it cut out.
Oh,
you said you're in. Yeah, so it was just the epic cliffhanger there. So who are you rooting for? Who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl?
I'm hoping that the Chiefs will, because
the Kansas City Chiefs.
But it's hard because I love the Eagles. I love the story backgrounds of the early on Eagles. So it's a tough one, but I'm going to go with Kansas City.
All right, Kansas. We got Kansas City. We got a Chiefs. You know what? And I like that. I like that Chiefs pick there. Travis Washer, big Chiefs fan. What's up, Travis? Here, look, we got Eagles. EAGLES. Do people do that, Janet? Is that a thing? It doesn't have a. It doesn't really have a ring to it. It's an odd word to spell. There's silent letters. All right.
And if she wears the eagle hat.
Do you wear the eagle hat, Janet? And if so, what part of the eagle does your head go into? I want to know. Put it in the comments here. We get a little fresh sometimes. Lisa checking in, looking forward to the topics mentioned. Lisa, throw a comment in there. If you've got a question for us, let us know. Hit that like button. We got Jana Chezanowski, normally of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, but here in Dallas, Texas with the team today. We're going to get into it. Tyler Gannon checking in from the Stars of Boston. Richard's got a question, and look, we got Cowboys. Yes, go Cowboys, indeed. Are you making fun of me, Slavin? Oh, man.
Maybe next year, Slavin.
Thank you. Richard's got a question, and now I know that you've recently kind of, are you semi-retired? Are you kind of consulting out? What's going on in your world these days, Merrilee?
Yeah, I retired about a year ago. I'm semi-retired. I still do some freelance on the side. I'm still keeping my toes in mobility, where my passion is. But yeah, I decided with COVID and just to take time, and I had 36 years in the industry, and I just was ready to step back and enjoy life a little more.
Yeah, I love it, and I love the fact you can do that. And I also want to kind of talk a little bit about your time in our industry and everything. But we do have the reason I asked is we do have a question here from Richard here, and if you can't comment on it, that's fine. That's totally cool. But Richard says he wants to know what the applications for consumer, in your opinion, because we are talking about technology, for consumer platforms. And you don't have to comment on Expedia, specifically, but do you see an application for consumer platforms like that one or others? I mean, there's others out there, Airbnbs and Verbos and things of that nature. Do you see that having an application for relocation, or do you think that there's a different, maybe duty of care kind of hurdle that has to be surmounted there?
I guess the understanding of what that platform would be used for. I mean, is it an employee platform, or, I think maybe the angle I would take on that would be maybe if, aside from the company, if you're trying to help people on, vacations or that, and trying to meet their needs to give them more information so they can have more enjoyable, travel, or if you're allowing workations for a short period of time, some more of that information out there as part of your platforms. But kind of that personal angle, like companies do with International SOS, where you have the company platform and then on the side you address some of the personal, if people want to take out the personal side, maybe.
Yeah, so you're saying like maybe from like an employee, like a self-service kind of
Yeah.
a play, right? Obviously for travel, I mean, I could see it for, as an affiliate kind of a thing, to say, we have a company page, maybe with a discount preloaded for employees of a certain company. But from a managed relocation standpoint, do you see the use of booking engines in general being coming into our industry and disrupting, or do you think that that's not really feasible?
Well, I believe in centralization of systems, and we're just not there. Many
Mm,
some companies are that put the investment in it, but many, as we know, 34% of our industry is still on Excel spreadsheets. So,
wow.
we, to centralize, I mean, you could start putting the feeds in there and helping. What self-service do you want? Do you want self-service, for obviously for the business side, but then there should, can we do self-service for the personal side? Because, for example, recently, I work as a part-time person at Target, and for my retirement job, and I'm helping these college kids that want to take time off and travel. I refer them to the company site for some resources, but there's not a lot of resources there or direction to help them figure out the passport, the travel type of engines and all that. It would be nice to have that as a component, to help people with their personal desires outside, work, because it kind of touches, our side of the business as well. So yeah, I
Yeah.
believe it should be more, to help them be safe and travel personally safe.
Yeah, and let's stay on the topic of technology here for just a bit here, and Richard follows up with a comment saying we certainly see OTAs, um, online travel agencies, I think, use when employees are relocating a lump sum. Of course, yes, exactly, kind of what Merrilee was saying. Richard, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on that as well. Tessa says this depends on the company culture. Some want to provide
Mhm.
more or less for their assignees. Not all companies will approach this the same way.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it really, because and you have purpose of the company, you have the culture, all those components. How what is desired in that culture, is going to dictate, what support they're going to give to their employees. I agree with Tessa.
I want to stay here from a technology standpoint because we've talked a lot about kind of millennials, and now of course we have the zennials, right? And with every generation it seems like we're under more and more pressure to offer technologically enabled solutions, to offer more employee choice, to create a Netflix experience or the an Amazon experience, right, for relocation. But as someone who's kind of worked on the corporate side and been close to the transfer experience, but also the needs of the business, I mean, what are your thoughts on this, and what's the right balance, and maybe like what's maybe a bridge too far?
Well, I mean, it, if you look at, the data I read was that by 2025, about 75% of our workforce is going to be millennials, and they're going to want to go abroad and have that experience
That's
abroad.
only 2 years. Did you say 2025?
2025.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, if the data is correct, that's what they say, and we already know that, these young populations are wanting that international experience. It's not going to be the chosen few that are going to go globally. I mean, it's going to be a bigger, larger part of our workforce, and that, regulations move very slow, and they don't meet where the future of work is going right now. I mean, I think it will, but it's going to take time. So the policies and, within organizations and how they make that happen and those desires, but it has to be a win-win, for the employee and the organization to meet the critical business needs. That's where marketplace comes in and skill sets and those type of things come into play.
Where is that balance? And this is, the comments right now are killer right now.
Yeah.
Hit that like button right now. Get in the comments, ask questions as well. We've got a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about here. But people, first and foremost, sidebar here. People want to know, is somebody trying to break through that wall behind you? Is the Kool-Aid man trying to bust through the wall? Sean goes on to say, mad props to Merrilee for not even flinching as it fell. A true pro. Richard agrees, respect. It does take a lot of courage to do these things. So we're all having fun here. Mary Ellen, though, does say, I agree with Mary Lee. The millennials are going to dictate what and how our culture looks like going forward. And Aaron goes on to say, 3 cheers for employees working abroad when they want to. But if employers start allowing this more and more, then cultural training needs to be more of a priority.
Agreed.
Interesting. Let me ask you about the balance, though, right? Because we've been talking about this being an employee-driven market for a couple of years, kind of, since, COVID, the onset of COVID. And now there's some murmurings of the market flipping and now the corporations being back in control and the bosses, being back in control and saying, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, and kind of, not as much, you can do whatever you want. We just want you to work here and be happy, and kind of more of a semblance of what had happened coming back in. What is your sense of that balance now and the willingness of companies to, I don't want to say bend the rules, but explore new alternatives and to be more, let me just say, be more accommodating? What is your sense of where the market is around being more accommodating towards employees?
I think it comes to, there has to be flexibility. I mean, because in this world of reconsideration and leaving and all that, you have to add that, everything that we're reading right now, or I'm reading right now, is on, you have to have some flexibility. But again, the regulations are moving at a slower pace, and that makes it tough for companies to be that flexible. But I think flexibility will come more and more, but it's tough with the current economy. You've got the regulations that companies are, opening their eyes to, that now that COVID is, waning, some of those things that allowed people to be over these borders or sitting in these countries is going away, and the regulations are coming back to be enforced. And so some of those realities are happening, and again, the regulations don't match what companies are trying to do and be flexible, so they can retain, their employees.
Is there going to be a reckoning of that, right? I mean, people are talking about the compliance issues around some of these work from anywhere policies and other types of policies. I mean, do you, we haven't had yet a couple of tax cycles and other things that have come into play. I mean, do you think that these things are going to come to a head at some point and cause a return to the way things were? Or do you think we're just going to find new and creative ways to enable people to do these things?
I think you have to be, companies have to remain innovative and creative, and part of that is education too, because, maybe the employee can't go to, over to the Canary Islands, I don't know what their rules are, but maybe they can go to Portugal. So I think, those things have to be weighed based on the regulations and what the companies can allow, corporate tax and their outside personal tax advisors and the immigration experts and the legal experts. That's why you put in processes for, evaluating, and there's tools to do that out there now. A lot of, there's companies out there that have created tools for you to assess the compliance risk, so you can be flexible. So I think companies, just like we do now, we figure out ways to get important talent to a location, that's needed. So I think that will continue.
Yeah, super interesting. Got a couple more questions on this. We got some really great topics coming up. Get your questions in the comments. Shout out to Janet and John checking in, and Aaron. Sean has one more question on this topic, but will that international experience be self-directed or organization-driven? And will self-directed get company help as benefits and alleviate some risk with employees moving?
Well, there's always going to be the traditional assignments and those, that meet the critical business need of the organization. You're always going to have where you have, leaders sitting down and moving people, moving critical, jobs to the locations that they need those individuals. And then you always get the personal side of it. But that's where, in my opinion, and people may not agree, but that's where I think that marketplace is going to be important, and gigs are going to become more important to the organization. And part of that personal passion and those skills can be matched with that critical, those business needs that are out there. I think it can be. I think it can be both employee driven based on passion, but meet the critical business need as well if the right skills are there.
I love what you said about gigs, right? And I'm seeing some folks here in the comments who are kind of gig oriented, right?
Yeah.
And I think, gosh, I remember Peggy Smith was beating the gig economy drum heavily, 5 years ago. And I'm like, what is a gig economy, and she was, and I was like, no way this has anything to do with corporate America. This is about Ubers and whatever. This doesn't apply to us, right? But I just see it so much.
Yeah, well, it's there. If you think about a lot of corporations right now, they have a lot of contingent workers. As a big part of, when I worked at Cario, a big part of their workforce was extended workers and contingent workers. So, the gig is, I've been watching it for over 5 years, and I believe that, it's going to be, with this marketplace discussion and matching skills to tasks and so forth, that you're going to see more of the gig. The problem is that with the gig, you have to release them to go work, and then you got the pay and equity.
What do you mean by that? You have to release them to go work, and you have pay and equity.
Well, because if you hire them for a job, and then here they want to go they have the skill sets or passion to help, a critical business driven need, and they want to put them somewhere else within the organization or location, then that manager has to release that person for X amount of time. So then you have to discuss equity and comp for the position that they're going to take for that gig, and if they're going to come back to that original position.
So you're talking about gigs within the organization, gigging within the organization.
Yeah. You're going to see that, definitely. I believe that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating, and
because you want to meet passions of employees. I had passions in my career, and my bosses allowed me to do certain things. I had people under me that had passions that wanted to do an assignment, for 6 months. And you want to meet those passions because you want to keep those employees. So that's where the flexibility comes in.
What about gigging outside the organization? What about using gig workers who work for multiple organizations, even within the same discipline? Like, obviously, like, nobody cares if you're driving an Uber at night, but what if you're doing similar job function at a competitor?
Well, I don't, are you saying I'm going to work for one company, but then go work as a gig?
Here's an idea, right? Say there's a, say one company has a relocation program of 20 people, right? It's not super huge, right? And they need a relocation manager. They need a global mobility manager, but maybe they don't need a full-time one, but they still have all the same compliance issues. So you need a high level person because you still need somebody that understands all the issues at play, right? But you can't justify spending $120,000 a year maybe for that role, right? So maybe, but maybe you want that caliber of person. What about, using a fractional person that's giving you 50% of the time and doing 50% of the time at another firm that has 15, transfers a year or signings a year. So, stuff like that. I mean, do we see it getting to that point?
Well, it could happen within maybe the RMC. I mean, you see that happen within like the Deloitte's where they loan out to help with that issue. So, but I don't see it. I don't. I don't know it. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I think it's harder with corporate to corporate because you've got those sensitivities um, within organizations and information. So I think
Yeah.
that would be. But I think from an RMC side or the big four side or other consulting, they do it already. They loan people into the organizations to help. When I was at Expedia, we had that situation. We had somebody come and help us internally from the RMC.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I totally understand like that suggestion that I just made. There's something like off-putting about that idea, right? There's something that flies in the face of what we know about a relationship with an employee, and yet we would trust a Deloitte to do it all day long. We trust an RMC to do it all day long, and they're essentially handling our competitors as well, right? Aaron says if that person is a consultant, it could work, but you would hope that they would have the integrity to avoid any conflicts of interest. I find it interesting, the difference we make between the integrity of a consultant versus the integrity of a part-time employee. I think I guess my point is all these lines seem to be getting blurred to me, and I feel like we have to rethink the definitions of these people. I mean, I know there's legal and tax definitions and things like that, but maybe rethink the connotation of these relationships and what they mean. And then I guess, Merrilee, I would ask you, when we start going into things like this, how does the role of HR change to support these different types of relationships?
I I think the I think that it's that's kind of a hard question. I mean, I always think,
It is kind of a hard question.
well, I mean, are you talking from the mobility side or from the HR function side?
Yeah, great question. Probably from the HR function side, right? So if you're managing a group of people with different types of classifications, and who are working kind of like interdependently with one another, and what are some of the issues that might arise from that? I mean, everything from talent acquisition and recruiting those folks to, you talk about equity, right? Like how does that work when you have some employees that are full-time benefited and some benefits
Yeah,
and
I
some
think
employees
that's where HR brings. I mean, you get a lot of talk about task forces and somebody being over those task forces to help you in the cross-functional um, to bring in the different people within the organization as to address these big issues. And I think those tasks, I think you're going to see more of those type of task forces that are from different areas of the business and to address these tough issues. You have to, because you're going to have pulling in and having kind of a central ecosystem so everyone's marching the right way, so to speak.
Interesting. We have people checking in here with some great comments. Hit that like button right now. Loving these comments. We're kind of going down a little bit of a rabbit hole here with some stuff that I didn't plan on talking about, but it's just so fascinating to me as
I
I'm
didn't
currently.
either. So.
I know. I'm totally springing this on Merrilee, right? But we've got great comments from people, so it tells me that people are really interested in these ideas. I'm just going to read some of these here. Sean Luchin says companies will start the decision process earlier, and it will be more common to have a decision process around full-time employee, contractor, or vendor versus just defaulting to employee. I'm guessing, right? It's like, how do we really want to classify this person? What is the scope of them? Or vendor is a really interesting idea there too, to your example before about like Deloitte, for instance. Richard's saying use of virtual assistants, VAs, are widespread for admin tasks where a company can operate with global departments. Can this go beyond admin, causing reduction in people moving around the globe? Does that make sense? Richard, that's a dangerous question. Does that make sense?
Well, I think I might be on a different arm here, but I think he has a point. When you're thinking about technology, you're thinking about what can you for mobility. Since there's so much they have to manage, they get sucked into the compliance. When you have technology, you put technology in, you get rid of, you're looking to get rid of those things that can be done by AI or other administrative tasks that can be automated, so you can free them up for their strategic consulting. So yeah, I think we're going to see more of those type of technologies coming into play. So mobility teams that are only 3 or up to 5, they'll be able to have more of those administrative tasks and focus on these more complex issues because they need to.
Yeah, I agree. And Sean brings up a great point here. Lines between traditional mobility, HR, and procurement are blending. You all keep saying HR or mobility, but this is about the best talent strategy. Huh. And then Christina goes on to say, I think we have seen salespeople doing this a lot recently. Many sales folks on the supplier side have moonlighting contracts and consulting services that they offer. It's all about integrity and knowing how to manage that carefully and professionally. I agree, Christina. I mean, that's how I started Glomo. I started offering fractional, basically chief revenue officer type of services to select suppliers, and realizing that they all needed a certain level of sophistication in their sales and marketing, but a lot of really good smaller suppliers weren't able to afford that, right? But they still needed that caliber. So I totally see that. And then let's see here. This is fun. Richard's saying, I would like tips on retiring from Merrilee because this boomer needs a break.
I hear you. After 36 years of 10, 13-hour days, you're talking to Europe early in the morning and, China and Singapore and others at night. Definitely COVID made me reevaluate, some of, being able to spend more time with family now. So, I get exercise through my Target drive up job. I get 22 to 25,000 steps in, and I don't go to a gym anymore.
Oh, wow. That's great activity, Merrilee. 25,000 steps. Oh my gosh, that's like a week's activity for me. I should probably get it. I should start moonlighting at Target. I want to talk a little bit about, I want to go back though, Merrilee. You have a really interesting story, and I want to ask you about it kind of quickly here. You grew up in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And you traveled a lot. How do you think that influenced your career? Did that have an impact on you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, growing up overseas and having that imprinting of work, being around other nationalities was a big part of my life. And then going in, starting off my career at Honeywell, which focused on expats. And, right there, I just knew that that was my niche because it felt so comfortable. It was just part of me. And also then, throughout your career, when you're working with expats and their families, you realize at first they just think you're an American sitting back at corporate HQ. But then when they find out that you were an expat kid, you grew up overseas, the majority from a baby till you were a teen, and you've traveled globally, and also I had an assignment myself with a company. You gain that credibility. They listen to you more. So definitely my background, because I could identify as a child, seeing the decisions
Right.
also my parents had to make. And so I could identify with that. When they were talking about schooling, I knew the importance of schooling and the consulting of schooling, and going to look at that location, and because schooling and housing and all that are a priority to that was a priority of my parents. They had to understand the schooling that was going to be in Arabia, and they had to understand his career, and he had to understand what type of housing and what type of family life we would have over in that community.
So you really lived it, and so you really understand firsthand the value proposition for managed relocation, managed global mobility programs. Do you think that that's given you an empathy that you've relied on throughout your career?
Both empathy and compassion. You become a listener, and you can identify with the stress of relocation. I've relocated several times myself within the United States for my career, also internationally, had a short-term assignment. So yeah, it definitely, all those components of my childhood to my own experiences within my career moving, gives you a better understanding of the stress on the family.
Yeah, I could totally see that. You know, with all your experience in this business, I have the good fortune of speaking to young people who want to get into global mobility, or people who are just getting started, quite a bit. And what advice would you give to people who wanted to get into this industry, and especially in terms of education and experience that would serve them?
Well, it definitely, um, there's two sides they can, go on. Obviously, I mean, well, actually, they have the tax side, the immigration side, or the corporate or the RMC side. If they want, it depends the direction, they want to go. But for example, I went the consulting and hop back into the corporate side, and depending what direction they go, the education, I just don't get siloed, would be my advice. And what I mean by that is I've seen individuals in our business, and I've hired individuals that we're focused on one spoke, because if you think of mobility, we always think of within the spokes, and all, the tax, immigration, payroll, all those pieces of the spokes, but they're siloed in that one spoke, and they don't have that exposure to immigration, tax, and all the technical aspects and technology. So they really need to use their resources, through ERC and conferences. And one piece of advice: write it into your employment. And, I wrote in several times because I was scared with when they would get rid of training, that I wouldn't be able to go to my tax conference, which I felt was vitally important. So I wrote it into my hire details, that so I could make sure that I could go to one of the big tax conferences where I felt like I could interface and learn that technical aspects, and that was vital. I mean, the Deloittes and PwCs, EYs, and KPMG were a big component of my education, besides ERC and the other conferences that I attended. But
that's a great tip. That's a great tip right there. I love that. The fact that you actually had the presence of mind to stipulate in your employment agreement, in your offer letter, that you need to attend these things, right? Because it's one of the things we talk about in the interview process, and then we join, and maybe we go the first year, but then somewhere along the lines, our boss is like, well, I don't know, do we really need to go? Budget cuts, things have happened, yada yada, and then we end up not going. And then once you don't go, sometimes it's hard to kind of get back on that
yeah.
cycle again, that rhythm, right? And
Well,
then who suffers? The business suffers, but you suffer.
Because you need to get that exposure. You need to, the importance. You're out there, and others that I know are on the stream that I know are out there. That's how you're learning. That's how you're
Right.
getting the exposure, and learning from others, and talking with people that are within your industry.
All right, you got to. I always call it sharpening the saw. I think that was a. It was a Stephen Covey thing. You gotta always find time to sharpen the saw, and that's what conferences are great for. They're also good at getting you recharged and getting you excited about doing your job. You know, you come back pumped up, fired up, motivated. Very cool. Merrilee, I want to play a little game. You want to play a game with me, Merrilee?
I sure.
Yeah, everybody gets freaked out when I say that. Like, what's gonna happen next?
Yes, exactly.
No, we're gonna play a game called Overrated, Underrated. Okay, you've watched the show. Do you know how to play the game Overrated, Underrated?
Yes. Yes.
All right, pretty simple. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to give Merrilee a concept, term, thing. She's going to tell me if it's overrated or underrated. And then, of course, if you watch the show, you know, I will then tell her if she's right. It's a joke, but I will. Anyway, all right, let's hop into it. The first one, overrated, underrated. Heated and cooled seats. Tread carefully, Merrilee.
Definitely underrated.
Yes. All right, you are 1 for 1. I know, because you're a Minnesotan, right?
Below right lately, my heated seats are a saving grace, definitely. And I wish I had cooling seats. And I know Ford I found out has cooling seats in their trucks, so it's like I need to get myself a Ford truck.
All right, I want to see everybody in the comments here. Okay, this is an audience thing. Now, I'm not going to ask you if it's overrated or underrated, okay? I'm going to ask you which is more important, heated or cooled seats. I feel like the world has two types of people. You have heated seat people and you have cooled seat people, okay? I want to know, are you a heated seat person? Are you a cooled seat person? Get in the comments here. We have a lot of people weighing in here saying underrated. Scott saying underrated. Christina saying underrated. Yes, everybody agrees. This is why this is actually an easy one. I always like to give layups up front here. But I want to know, are you a heated seat person or a cooled seat person? Let me know. Look at, we have see, I got to be honest with you, Merrilee. I'm a cooled seat person.
Well, that's because you live in Texas where it can get over 100 degrees at some point.
I run hot. I'll be honest with you, okay? I hit that cooled seat. I hit that blue button a lot more than I hit that red button, okay? But I'll tell you what, as I've gotten older, which seems to be happening very rapidly lately, I've become a little bit more of a heated seat person. I'll be honest with you. Let's see. Let's see here. We're getting into it. All right. Janet Turner saying, I just learned about AC seats. Yes, they're not everywhere. Theodora says we need extra cooling seats in Arizona. That's great. So I'm gonna count that as a cooled seat. Janet Turner says heated seats, 1 for 1. Heated seats, 1 for 2. Look at Janet Alkowski says heated. Scott Chapman says heated are more important. Scott, you live in Texas. What do you mean?
Heated.
Sandy says heated seats are most important. Oh, Sandy. That's a limiting belief, Sandy. Inside joke. Sean says heated. John Marsh says he. Look at Johnny Marsh coming out of nowhere with the heated seats.
Hey,
UK comes with cooled seats. Is that more standard? Richard, is cooled seats more standard in the UK than heated seats? Mary Ellen saying heated seats all the way. People are, you know what? This is a landslide here. Heated seats have it. Christina says cooler seats. I can't deal with sweaty legs back in Pittsburgh's humid summers. Pittsburgh's humid summers. I love it. Oh, Scott, yes, for extra points. Scott says heated steering wheels. That's when you know Scott's got a nice car. Everything's heated. He's got a foot massager in it. We'll have to ask him about that. This is so fun. Janice, we got all the Janets here today. This is fantastic. All right, let's go for the sake of time here. Next one. Store drive-up services. Drive-up services. Now, this is big. This started before the pandemic and has really become a huge thing. Everywhere has drive-up services. Is this overrated or underrated, Merrilee?
I'm leaning towards underrated, but I kind of can be overrated too. I'm
going to make you choose. I'm going
to say underrated because I still think there's a lot of room growing in that area. So they're putting
Yeah.
a lot of investments in that area.
It feels like we're never going to get off our heated seats and go in a store anymore, doesn't it?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's wonderful for families and with babies, being able to leave them in your car
Kids.
seats, or, traveling with your dogs. You don't have to go in, and you can pick up your stuff. And if it's 33 below, you make the person come out to your car.
Yeah, I do love it. And look, Sandy says underrated. Love my drive up dry cleaning. I want to ask you in the comments, what is your favorite drive up service? Sandy read my mind. Sandy saying I love my drive up dry cleaning. Yes, Sandy, I do too. But Sandy, I'll tell you what. You know what I hate? I hate when they try to give you the dry cleaning through your window. I don't know. I'm very spoiled. I want them to come around, open up the back door, hang it nice. Sometimes they try to shove it in through the window, and I'm like, yo, it's killing me here. Richard saying, what is a drive up service? Richard, so if you order your groceries online, or if you order maybe some electronics or something from Best Buy, or you order a food sometimes from a takeaway joint. Furniture.
When you think of Target, it's groceries and furniture. It's everything. Yeah.
No, Richard, it's not home delivery. You drive up to the store and they come out and they say, Mr. Majewski, are you 1015? And you're like, yes, I am. And then they say, open your trunk, and they stick whatever you bought in your trunk, and you drive off.
See, Ben, that's what I do for my part-time job. That's how I get all my steps in.
Are people nice when you do it? Do you find them to be nice and appreciative?
The majority are. I mean, you get in every situation,
Good.
you get the people that are kind of grumpy, but for the most part, people are really, they say, I love the service. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So I would say more percent of the customers that I deal with are very appreciative, especially when they seat me out in the cold. Yeah.
And yeah, -30, and Merrilee's coming out there, trudging out there with whatever they bought. Let me ask you, my wife's addicted to Target pickup. I think she's having a relationship with the Target pickup person.
And I get to know the regulars. I know their dogs' names, everything. Yeah.
You ever see my wife come there?
Well, no, she's down in Dallas, so no.
She is. Let me ask you this: Do anybody ever? Does anybody ever give a tip for the service?
They try, but we're not supposed to accept tips. But if you throw it at us,
toss it out there and peel out and just drive away, that's not dangerous. Okay, great.
Report it if we but we have to turn it down. But if they throw it at us, I mean, there's not much to do.
All right, so here's the takeaway for everybody: throw the money on the ground, drive off hastily, don't hit anybody. This is great. Christina saying, introverts unite. I love me some curbside pickup, Kohl's, groceries, restaurants, dry cleaning. Janet saying, Ben, you were spoiled. Really, Janet? I mean, yes, I am spoiled, but Sandy saying, open the back door for sure. Thank you, Sandy. Janet saying, got to get your steps in. Yeah. Janet's just mad because they don't got curbside in the Poconos. Come on, Janet, no hate. Christina, interesting. So we have click and collect and arrive to find it takes longer than grabbing from the shelf yourself. Richard, man, you got to come to the States. We are very efficient. Merrilee's out there. She's got it. They come out so fast at Target. It's like they watch you pull up. It's crazy how fast.
Oh, yeah, we have cameras. We can watch you pull up. Yeah.
Watch us throw the money on the ground and peel out. This is great. All right, we got time for one more. Last one here. Going out for brunch, overrated or underrated? Tread lightly.
I love brunch. So underrated, whether you do it for friends, which I love to do, or meeting friends or family for brunch is the greatest thing ever.
You know why brunch is the best thing in the world? Because it combines one of the best meals of the day, breakfast, with the concept of sleeping in.
Yeah.
And it's just late enough that you can hook a mimosa in there and not look weird. It's really the best. It's really the best of all worlds here. Rich is saying underrated. This is great. Everybody loves brunch. I mean, that's a platform you could run for president on, to be honest with you. Scott Chapman, anything that includes breakfast foods, I'm in.
The other thing I'll say about brunch is when you have, you spend so much time cooking dinner, when you have guests and they don't stay very long. But I noticed when I have people over for brunch or go out for brunch, people take time. And, it's so lovely when you're sitting down with friends and they stay and you have coffee and you have, wonderful brunch treats. You just, they're not in a hurry, but they're a hurry, for dinner. So I think it's going to brunch is the way to go over, having people for dinner.
I love it. Take the time to have brunch, have your mimosas. And yes, John, maybe you get your interaction at brunch. Maybe you do curbside all week and you just double brunch on the weekends, John. Something to think about, Merrilee, this has been great. I could talk to you for another hour. I've loved having you on today. I've loved having your support and always seeing your face in the comments. Do you want to leave people with maybe just a final thought before we depart for the day?
I just think this is the greatest industry. It's been so good to me, so many friends, and just, been blessed in this industry. I hope to continue to keep my toes in it and be, still a voice here to help our industry. And I think we have a lot to look forward to continually in our industry. Yes, it's changing, but I think, that's why we like this business, because it's ever changing and we're always being challenged to be innovative.
Love it. Couldn't have said it better myself. Merrilee, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Really appreciate it. And keep on what you're doing, Ben. Love it.
Thank you so much, Merrilee. And stay tuned, everybody, for Thursday's episode. I say stay tuned. I mean, you can go do things. You got 48 hours. But we'll be back here Thursday with Scott Chapman from Prime Lending. Can't wait to have him in studio here in Dallas. Take care.